Who's actually going to get real value out of a high-end desktop NAS like this, and who would be better off putting their money toward a simpler external drive? If you're on the fence about whether a 5-bay unit with a Ryzen 7 CPU is worth the price tag for everyday tasks, keep listening. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I'm going to walk through the kind of workflow that makes this box shine, the moments it can feel like overkill, and the hidden trade-offs that most shoppers miss the first time around. First, let's talk about the kind of user who actually needs that massive 174TB storage ceiling. I run a small post-production studio that pulls raw 8K footage from multiple cameras, cuts it down to proxies, and then archives the original files for future revisions. In that world, a single rack that can hold 5 hot swap bays and keep the data on a set of 32TB enterprise drives means I never have to juggle external enclosures or worry about running out of space in the middle of a shoot. The Ryzen 7255 processor, with 8 cores and 16 threads, isn't just a brag-worthy line item. It lets me run a Plex media server, a VM backup job, and a Docker-based transcoding pipeline all at once without the CPU becoming a bottleneck. When the network traffic spikes because a client is pulling a 10 GB file over the 10 GB port, the box still feels responsive. If you're a home user who mainly streams movies, backs up a few photos, and maybe runs a modest game server, the same machine can still be useful, but you'll be paying for a lot of horsepower you'll never tap. In that scenario, the real question becomes whether you'll actually fill the bays. 5 slots cost you more than a 2-bay unit, and the SSD cache, a 64GB NVMe drive, is great for speeding up access, but if your data lives on a single 4TB NAS drive, you'll barely notice the difference. That's where the skip it part comes in. If you're happy with a 2TB Synology for family backups, the N5 Air is probably more than you need. Now, let's look at the practical strengths that show up once the unit is live on the desk. The triple 8K HDMI outputs are a surprise hit for people who use the NAS as a media workstation. I've set it up in a small conference room, plugged the HDMI into a 4-capable monitor, and used the built-in graphics to run a real-time video wall displaying multiple camera feeds. Because the graphics chip shares the same memory pool as the CPU, the system can handle the decoding without a separate GPU. That makes it a cheap way to get a multi-display workstation without buying a dedicated video card. The networking suite is another area where the value adds up quickly. The 10 GB port is a game changer for anyone who moves large media libraries across a local network. I once copied a 12TB collection of raw footage from one bay to another over a standard 1 GB link. It took nearly 8 hours. Switched to the 10 GB and the same job finished in just under an hour. The additional 5 GB port is handy for a second, isolated network, for example a guest VLAN that lets contractors pull files without exposing your main storage traffic. And the 2 USB 4 ports, capable of 40 gigabits per second, give you a fast way to connect external SSDs for quick ingest or backup without needing a separate Thunderbolt dock. On the flip side, there are a few practical weaknesses that surface after you've already paid. The first is noise. The fans are designed to keep 8 cores cool under load, but when you push the CPU and all 5 drives simultaneously, the unit can get loud enough to be noticeable in a quiet home office. It's not a scream, but you'll probably need to move the box a few feet away from your desk or add some acoustic padding if you're sensitive to fan noise. Second, the upgrade path isn't as seamless as the spec sheet suggests. The board has 2 DDR5 SODIMM slots, which is great for future memory expansion, but the slots are positioned behind a removable panel that requires you to remove the whole front chassis. It's doable, but not as quick as popping a stick of RAM into a laptop. If you ever plan to bump the RAM from 16 GB to the max 96 GB, expect a short downtime while you reassemble the front. The same goes for the 3 M.2 slots. They are accessible, but you have to unscrew a small bracket, which can be a bit fiddly if you're not comfortable with tools. Another trade-off is power consumption. The Ryzen 7 chip and 5 spinning drives pull a decent chunk of electricity, especially when you enable both 10 GB and the USB 4 ports at full speed. For a household that tries to keep the watt-hour count low, this box will push your bill up a few dollars each month. It's not a massive spike, but it's something to factor into the total cost of ownership. Now, let's put the N5 Air into